Hey, gun people. Well, more cops earning the hate. So, this article, if you're really not paying attention, it's hard to tell. But the officer that was fired was not this guy. When you watch the video, he protested the arrest and said, I don't think we should be arresting a 6-year-old, putting her in cuffs. Now, I'm kind of a little on the fence, and people are going to be pissed. This kid was assaulting and punching school staff. She's 6 years old, and she's punching and assaulting school staff members. What do you do with them? Do you give them a trophy for participation? I mean, this is the problem when you take away parents' ability to discipline their kids and you give it to the government, and then government can't deal with it, so they want to put everybody in jail. So parents now, either through laziness or government don't want to get in trouble, they don't discipline or raise their kids. There's no deficit or fallback on parents for not raising their kids. Parents aren't held liable for their kids' actions, so therefore there's no reason for them to try and improve their child's behavior. I think that's a bigger problem. But government here, another total collapse of government with policies in place that were not followed, that were abused, and these are senior officers. The officer that got fired is 26 years on the department. This is the officer that wanted her arrested and demanded the arrest and was a school resource officer. 26 years on the department. When you watch the video, if you read this article, you're going to think that Ramos, this officer, is the bad guy. Evidently, during the internal, Ramos protested this arrest, and a school resource officer probably said, hey, man, I can't go. You need to transport him. And probably gave the kid to him to transport. I think Ramos should have called a supervisor, but he didn't. And the school resource officer didn't call a supervisor, and that's why he was fired. The policy said anything under 12 years old had to get approval from, I think, the watch commander. Now they changed it to the deputy chief has to approve all arrests under 12. So, let's see. 12, 6-year-old from the school. Officer was fired. See, Orlando officer was fired. Turner is the one that was fired. This guy. When you watch the video, you're not going to be able to tell that. But anyway, let's take a look at the video and see what happens here.
With hurricanes.
Yeah.
The desert.
Come over here, honey. It's not gonna hurt.
No!
Okay,
No, I want handcuffs on! No! Don't put handcuffs on! Please! Help me!
Okay, so I know everybody's kind of, this pulls at the heartstrings, a little kid saying, please don't arrest me. Again, what would be the appropriate response for a kid assaulting the teachers? Can the teachers kick them out of school? Can they say they're not going to teach them? There's all kind of, I'll say it, liberal policies that prevent anybody from doing anything good. So therefore, it boils down to we need more money, more programs, more police, more prisons, more jails, more laws. That's the liberals' answer because they want more control. This is what the end result is, and now everybody's upset.
Help me! Please! Help me!
Let's go.
Your grandma, you can tell me what happened.
The way she's crying reminds me of Eddie Murphy, Delirious, when he said his mom would come in there with a shoe and throw it like a boomerang. And then you would cry, no, don't hit me. Rick, you can't laugh. Look, I'm not laughing at a little girl. I'm just telling you the way she's crying. Eddie Murphy made a skit on that because that's the way kids cry when they get in trouble. She wasn't crying when she was punching, kicking, or fighting with the school staff. And nobody's mentioning that part of this story.
What happened in the car, okay?
I don't want to go to the God.
You don't want
She's not the only one that doesn't want to. Everybody gets arrested says they don't want to go to jail.
to?
No,
You
please.
have to.
No, please. Give me a second chance.
You gotta play.
My big question is, when you arrest a 6-year-old, where do you book them? I don't think juvenile hall will take a 6-year-old. I would like to know what juvenile's policy was on the youngest they can take. Now, the problem with this officer that nobody's really showing is he was bragging to school staff that the youngest he's ever arrested was 7 years old. And now this 6-year-old makes a new record because he had to arrest 7-year-olds before. And he was also bragging that over his career, he arrests over 6,000 people. Now, was he bragging or was he just talking? And the school staff was like, you know, I can tell how this conversation went. The media made it out to where this dude was just being a jerk. And this dude's been around for 26 years, so I'm sure he's seen a lot of shit. So he was probably just saying, you know, the school's like, I can't believe that we have to arrest 6-year-olds. And he's like, yeah, you know what? The youngest I've ever arrested was 7. So maybe he wasn't bragging. He was just trying to say, look, shit happens. Young kids do bad things. I mean, what happens if this 6-year-old pulled a pencil and stabbed someone in the eye? Would people be upset that she was arrested? Nobody wants to talk about why she was arrested, and that it just seems blanket. There's no justification for arresting a 6-year-old. So if she stabs somebody in the eye with a pencil, the liberals would say, well, we need to get her counseling, and we need to, you know, remove pencils, and principals can't have points anymore, and we need to put up signs and regulate schools that they have to have signs saying no pencils stabbing in the eyes allowed. And that would be the liberal fix, which never fixes anything. It makes the problem worse. But liberals love to make the problem worse, because then they can ask for more money and more government and more laws and more regulations and more restrictions and more climate change, and we got to save the planet. We got to do all this to stop you stupid people from living your lives. Anyway, I gotta digress. Let's get back to the video here. Rick, why you always... Be quiet. Watch the video.
I don't want
This is what I hear when I hear my viewers comment and crying in the comments. This is what I hear, people. Rick was mean.
No.
You
Please. 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 Please let me go.
Oh, we have a bad emotional video from AP that has nothing to do with Trump. Let's make a pop-up with Trump's picker. So maybe we can connect Trump to causing this liberal infestation of disarray. We'll blame Trump by putting his picture on here. You think that's by accident, people? Do you think this just happened? That Trump's picture would show up when a kid's crying, being arrested at 6 years old? I say it's not a coincidence.
No. No, help me.
Okay.
Please.
Give
No.
me a second.
Okay, so that's the big 6-year-old child caper. You can read up on it. It's all out there. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying there's a lot of things that cause it. And what exactly is the answer when a 6-year-old stabs another kid in the face with a pencil or does something violent? Well, Brick, she didn't stab anybody. All she did was punch and kick or fight with the school staff. That's not stabbing. Okay. All she did was punch and kick. What's the best solution? I guarantee you there's policy that says you can't expel somebody. Why? Because you'll be called mean names that starts with R, the R word. And then nobody wants to be called that. So we have to move away from standards. We have to ignore bad behavior. We have to totally not correct any negative behavior whatsoever in the name of being fearful of the mean R word. That's what it all boils down to. Liberal ignorance and policies in my book. Government power. Should the guys have done it? Yeah. Were they mean? Did they arrest her, throw her on the ground? Look, the cop handcuffed her because I guarantee you policy said. Now, this cop said he wasn't aware of the policy that you had to call a supervisor. So both cops, 26-year-olds, or a cop that was a cop for 26 years and this cop, neither one of them knew the policy that you had to call a supervisor. That's called failure to train, failure to supervise, and negligent retention. If you've got officers out there that don't know the policy, it's because you ain't making them know it. You don't hold them accountable for not knowing it. How many other policies don't they know? How many other policies? If I was defending this cop trying to get his job back, I'd be going to every policy that was ignored and not enforced and showing video of, hey, you don't enforce policy. That's why he didn't know the policy. Now you fired him because he violated policy. And another thing I'd be arguing is this guy violated policy and he didn't get fired. Why? Because his name was Ramos? Why did you fire the one guy who violated policy and you didn't fire him? So, you know, a lot of tentacles in the old government octopus, but all right, we'll end that there.